First of all, sail settings, pretty simple on the Cats. You know, mainsail in, jib in, kite, if it's out, in. Simple. Main sheet maybe just eased a little bit, obviously downwind. You're experimenting with that one yesterday, which is why we focus on the 5 essentials today, to get the other elements balanced. So, sail settings, we've covered that. We've done that one yesterday. Second, dagger boards. Depends on the boat. Obviously, here we say halfway up because we don't want to break the casings. Snap the dagger boards, break the casings. Because if you have a look in certain boats, there are some holes and little cracks in the back of the casings where they have been split. But Ben is working his way through them and repairing them, so that's fine. We're going to get on to 3 and 4. These two are the crucial parts of making that boat go faster. Trim and balance. I like to remember it like a compass. We'll cover that later. So, has someone swapped our blue pen? Because our blue pen's stopping working. And I'm not happy. So, trim, forwards and backwards. It's as simple as that. When you're sailing a Cat, you want to be sat as far forwards as possible. The further forwards you are, the more that bow digs in. I'm going to draw a little line on this bow because this will rub off as soon as it goes in the water. But when we're going down anywhere on the boat, we want this hull. We want the bow going in at that level. That's as optimal as possible. Does anyone know the reason why? No? Okay, I will tell you. The reason why is because if the bow is digging in at that level on the front,
the brake is coming out. Yes.
You release them, yeah.
That one is out of the water. That is what we want. The keel line on these boats, we want this digging in here so that this end, the water line, is coming off at that sort of angle there, as low as possible on those hulls. That gives a sort of trim balance of changing the boat from sitting nice and flat to, or slightly stern in and acting as a brake as you're going forwards, to actually driving forwards and stopping, acting as a brake, just cutting in, going at that rate, going forward. If we sit further back, that transom is in the water and acting as a brake for us. We don't want that. We want optimal speed as far forwards as possible. In the mornings, in this light stuff, you can literally be sat as far forwards. As Joseph and I went out yesterday afternoon, buzzy thing, I was on the wire, sat as a crew, just hooked on here, or in the middle bit here on the wire. It's as far forwards as you possibly can, because that...
You
Windward hull.
Yeah.
On windward hull, very, very, very rarely are you on that leeward side as far forwards as possible. But as a crew, you can be sat on this hull, digging that bow in as much as possible. The helm can be sat with their back on that dagger board, and you want to be as far forwards as possible. I can't reiterate that fact as enough, because it's so crucial. The further forward, the better. It's also quite comfortable for the crew, I can't lie. You can, when you're hooked on, and you're just sat hugging the spinnaker pole, leaning against it, you can actually have a nice conversation. Plus, as a little bonus, you can also see what that jib pole is doing to that mainsail. So you can see how open that is, what that slot is doing to that mainsail. So it also helps with your sail settings as well. You can identify when that's cutting in a little bit close and when that's, you know, doing nothing for you, or when that's doing everything it possibly could. So yeah, trim as far forwards as possible. Obviously when you're going downwind with the kite up, as the helm, you want to be sat sort of back against the dagger board. I'm going to move my line. Something simple. As a helm, you can be sat here. I find it easiest when I'm sailing to be sat there, and you can just steer from this position here. You can sort of do your push, your pull. Sorry, okay. You can do your push, pull, and you can be playing that mainsail. If you feel like it and you want to be a little bit more comfortable, you can put your foot on that boom. So obviously that's hanging up, and it's a little bit more relaxing. You also get a little bit of extra mast rotation because you can push your feet against that boom. So that sort of position is actually a very comfortable helming position. When you go as the crew, when you're going downwind in this light stuff, it's easy enough to just be sat sort of on your knees. You can be sat like this if you find it easier. Obviously, because you've got the dagger boards halfway up, you could be leaning against the dagger board and it's actually quite a nice little backrest. But then you've still got that accessibility to that kite sheet there, and you can see straight up forwards to that front edge of the kite and watch that lifting process, and just make sure you're playing that one nice and easy. So as far forwards as possible, downwind, front beam to sort of dagger board area is the ideal in this light stuff. Obviously, as soon as it gets heavy, maybe further out on the wire or something, but we'll cover that with the trapezing aspect. Next one. Anyone got any questions on the trim?
No.
Awesome. Or halfway up, cutting through the water there. We want this hull completely out and that dagger board just skimming through that water. Keeps us driving forwards, keeps us not drifting sideways as much as we could be if that dagger board's out. Obviously with these boats, because you don't have a skeg, it's easy to drift. If you took the dagger boards out, you would just drift sideways as you went forwards. You'd sort of head off in that angle. Whereas with these dagger boards in, nice and forwards. Keep this hull as much as you can out of the water, the windward hull out of the water, dagger board cutting through. Balance, it's each to their own. It's what you feel comfortable with. Obviously some people could feel a bit nervous, a little bit sort of not as ideal when the boat starts lifting or keeling over, but ideally you want that's the ideal, where that hull is out the water. Obviously if you're not comfortable with it, just hop out on the wire, trapeze, and you'll be fine. But it's not going to go anywhere. It's as soon as this hull is out, or just skimming the water with that dagger board, you'll actually find that your steering becomes a little bit lighter. You're suddenly not pushing two hulls together. You're actually just doing you're steering one hull, and that does everything for you. So balance, try to get that windward hull out. Obviously when we talk about the power and depower zones, we're sort of saying that there's a trend line of that kind of angle, where your power zone here and your depower zone here. This is what we mean by VMG. This is the trend, this is the sort of ideal line you want to be travelling on. You need to be finding that VMG. So with your sail settings, your dagger board, your trim and your balance, you'll find that actually your best VMG line will be slightly off the wind, obviously at your sort of close haul angle, which is where we start talking about our tailtails on the jib. Do you want to unfurl the jib? Is that alright? So what we do is we steer to the tailtails on the jib. I spoke about this. We want to be steering as a helm at these tailtails. The jib should just be in, upwind, get that jib in. As soon as that traveller car is placed, jib sheet's in, you're all good. We want to watch these tailtails. This is where my dyslexic brain comes in and goes, you're going to mess this talk up. But if the inside, on the windward side, is flapping, I'm trying to remember that, bear away. Yeah, when the windward one is flapping, it's going mental and it's going either up at this angle or going down at this angle, you want to bear away. You want that tailtails to be horizontal as possible. You can see them through the sail, which is really nice and easy. When that leeward one is flapping, you luff up. You need to turn up into the wind a little bit. You want to just keep staring at these two sets of tailtails or three sets of tailtails and watching what those do. If you can focus on one set of tailtails, focus on the top ones. The top ones are the most important, because as you can see by the sails, the top sail is closer to the biggest part of the mainsail. So if you're steering to a pair of tailtails, you want to pick the top one, because that's focusing on that main big bit of the belly of the sail. If you're focusing down here, you're only focusing on one panel. If you can focus up there, you've got about 2 or 3 panels of the sail that you're concentrating that airflow over, because that's what we want. We are creating that.
Will there be different at times?
Pardon, sorry?
Will there be different positions at times?
So what
if the top one's level, the bottom one will automatically be level as well?
Not automatically, no. But I personally always steer to the top ones, because that's where that main flow is getting directed over the back of that mainsail. The mainsail obviously is going to be doing a lot of. You can say the jib's useless because it's not as obviously it's nowhere near as important to the mainsail, but obviously it's directing the flow over the back of that main, creating that pressure gradient between the high pressure on this side and the low pressure on the other side. So with that flow over the back, you need that flow to create that pressure gradient. If you choke the mainsail into rest bend it, so you need that jib slot nice and open. Ooh, sorry, Eric. So yeah, that jib needs to be open enough that it's not pushing this air onto the luff, but at the same time not closed, not so far open that it's just an open slot that's just chucking air here, there and everywhere out the back. So we look at these tailtails to sort of tell us where we need to be pointing, what we need to be doing. Trapezing forwards. It's always that extra bit of stability, extra bit of safety, because you don't want to accidentally fall off. Come as far forwards as possible. Keep that one nice and tight. As a crew, don't forget, all you need to do to release these kinds of cleats is to just pull down and out. Pull down and out. Nice and simple. Keep that one there. As a crew, you can be as far forwards as possible. And then in this light stuff that we actually haven't got for once, which is really nice, you could be even in the middle here. Obviously this jib track is that when there's pressure in the jib, it's held up a little bit, so you can actually put one foot sort of there underneath the tack line, underneath the jib sheet, because obviously this is all under tension, and you can sort of be in this middle bit nice and comfortable, driving that hull forward, getting that bow digging in.
Would you ever stand on a dolphin striker?
Yeah, the dolphin striker is strong enough to stand on. If you feel comfortable on the dolphin striker, go for it, but front beam's just as good, a little bit higher, can sort of get you that little bit extra
Vi
height.
kommer videre, eller?
Jo, kan vi komme videre.
Then as the breeze starts to pick up, you want to just be able to sidestep out, maybe sit on the hull, drive that hull forward, you're still driving forward, you're still keeping that weight forward, but you're a little bit further out. As that breeze starts to pick up, obviously that hull's starting to dig in anyway naturally by the sail settings, so you can start to slide back a little bit. You can use any part of the boat. Front beam, you can put your foot against it there and start to use the pro grip on the side here, and as you swing out, sometimes, I've done it before, put your foot on the shroud there and you can sort of like swing in those gusts and lulls. You can sort of sit quite comfortably here and chill out. And then obviously as that breeze sort of starts to kick in, you go further and further out and then move slightly further back, because obviously there's a lot of force going through those bows. You want to watch those bows, and as a crew you want to sort of move your weight a little bit further forwards, a little bit further back, watching that hull height there. Obviously when the wind's going, that kite bag is a little bit further out, a little bit more level, so you can slide forwards, slide backwards, you can witness it, you can see it from this perspective. Obviously stronger winds when you're reaching, like Mark and I were yesterday on the Tiger, you can step a little bit further back because you want that weight a little bit further back. Obviously you're there suddenly a little bit further away from the wind, and then the force is trying to throw you forwards a little bit more. So sitting back a little bit, it's a little bit more comfortable, a little bit more in this position. You've also got to rely on the fact that your helm is not going to go anywhere at the same time. So yeah, as a crew, sort of these positions going upwind, so from that sort of central in front of the, in the middle between the spy pole and the hull there, so sort of all the way to this sort of position. In the cross shore in the afternoons, you can move yourself further back if the helm's got a narrow stance. If not, you can put one leg over their front leg, and then suddenly it's a lot more of a sort of stable position if you're good with not falling forwards. Watching. But yeah, that's sort of these sort of like transition from that hull to here, in between the hulls, so this position is sort of where you want to be. as a crew. As a helm, it's a little bit more of a different story. So as a helm, obviously you start off nice and far forwards, body positioning wise. You can be sat there, as I said, backrest, quite comfortable, feet on the boom, even more comfortable. And then as that breeze starts to pick up, obviously crews in the front here, you can start to move out round. As they start to move out round the side, you might just shift your weight back a little bit. Try not to get that tangled in. And then sort of shift your weight back a little bit more. And at this point, I kind of get annoyed with these because they dangle in your face a lot. So I just hook it on, and it suddenly takes a lot of the tension away straight away, and it's less dangly, less irritating for you. Once you've hooked on, if the crew's out and it's sort of getting to that twin wiring kind of weather, I find it easier to just sort of chuck my bum over the edge. And at that point, you can put your heels in the foot straps. Because these Tigers have got this sort of different style tramp, you can use that edge of the trampoline here and push against that one to help you come out. And you could use that as a sort of, almost like a RS800, almost like it's got wraps as a kick bar. You can push against that one, go step by step out to the side. As a helm, you want to be focusing a lot on sort of where you're steering and what the mainsail's doing. The crew should be focusing a lot more on the balance until you get to that twin wiring, shooting along, hell for leather, going for that mark. So the crew should be focusing on the weight until that point. But obviously, if there's conversations, communication between the team, you want to be maybe slightly further in. You can just bend your knees, easy enough. Squatting position, keep that tension on. Obviously, you're not going to go anywhere. But if you can go in and out, bending your knees, it's nice and simple. Downwind, obviously you've got that massive kite pushing you forwards. I believe it's 22 meters squared or something. Kite is pushing that bow down. You want to be able to move that a little bit further back. As you can see there, I've just naturally twisted my foot a little, 90 degrees, twisted my knee. A lot of the time it's a lot easier to stop yourself going forwards by twisting that foot and putting that forwards like that. You can sort of upwind, you can get away with flat footing. It's not going to do anything for you, but sometimes when you're going downwind with that kite trying to drive you forwards, it's a lot more of an easier position to sit there with your sort of relax on the wire and keep your foot there at that 90 degrees angle, or slightly further shallower depending on your own needs, basically. Obviously when that kite comes out, you want to move your weight further back, or on those reaches, weight further back. Mark and I yesterday, shooting about on a joyride, I had my back foot a lot of the time on that toe loop, on that foot strap on the back, and was just sort of sat in this position, but keeping that weight so far back on that back foot, but with my foot twisted like this, it meant I wasn't going to go as far forward as Mark did. Sorry Mark, just putting you in here there, but yeah. So I find it a lot easier to sort of steer and trapeze with my right foot, front foot twisted 90 degrees, sort of stops you from that bouncing aspect there. But you can easily sort of slide up and forwards in the light stuff. If you're a helm and the crew's in the middle there and that weight sort of keeping it driving forwards, you can actually just wire, come forwards, move side to side, backwards, forwards. Nice one, dude. Or put a knee down on the front, on the side there, and sort of just kneel. You don't even need to do it on the shroud. You can sort of kneel in that sort of forwards position. Essentially, you're connected to that hounds at the top there. Obviously, the further forward you can possibly be, the better. But it's watching that bow, keeping that waterline on that bow there, is the main part of it. So as you go out, you can simply upwind, put your foot against foot straps. I use that as a kick bar, and then sort of step process, nice and simple, and keep that sort of in my hand and just let that sheet sort of slide through my hand as I use that extension to the traveller. When you're going downwind, and if you're, for example, on the F18 and you're taking out the spinnaker sheets at the same time, I clamp it in the backhand there. It's nice and simple. You can keep it with you. It's not going anywhere if you've got a little bit of slack in that sort of line between you and the cleat. Obviously, you find that sweet spot and you keep that one in that sweet spot, and you can clamp it there and you can steer as much as you like from that angle and be playing that kite on the FXs. Yeah, so essentially I just clamp it there and ease it. Obviously when you're about to come in, that's the difficult part, because you've suddenly got the kite sheet you're taking care of and you've got the main sheet. I, at that point, before I come in, would just swap them over, put the kite sheet in my hand, in my back grip there, sheet that main on, because obviously we then suddenly close off that main, stop that hole from burying, and then we swap them back, so kite sheet in the front hand. As long as that's sheeted in and that square top up there is closed off, we can then quite easily just slide our hands in, come in. I then sort of, well, if you're there, just pull yourself up. I have a habit of, this is my own personal habit from years of it. I tend to either come in on my feet or on my knees. So I will pull myself sort of up like that, use that sort of force from the boat, pull myself up. Obviously it's not the same as going out, because you suddenly have to take out all the slack out of that one. But you can sort of nice and easy crouch out.
You've got both sheets in that hand.
I would usually, if I'm already out, at that point I would probably have both in, or I would have sheeted off the main, cleated it off, closed that top up, and then chuck the main back in, put the spinnaker sheet in my hand, because as you ease it to go out, I would also sort of bear away. It's all sort of helm preference. Everything is like, this is what I do. This is years of sailing, just sort of put together of bad habits, good habits, you know, sort of put together and sort of try to work on for race style training. It's sort of each to their own. Everyone's got their own thing that they find more comfortable. There's a method that, you know, there's a approved method, which is the sort of front hand back foot. Yeah, front hand back foot. But everyone does their own sort of thing. Sometimes I, you know, keep the kite sheet in my hand with the tiller, and as I sort of swing in, I bear away a little bit to just sort of come into that D-power zone, and then we'll just sort of swing in up onto my knees there, and then send myself around. I used to do that until I fell off my bike and hurt my neck, but that was, you know, a few weeks ago. So now we're back to normal. I would just come back on my knees, come back in, and then sort of be ready to go around. In this light stuff, it's a lot easier, it's a lot more able to control, but it's sort of that trial and error. You can use, today we could use it in the morning, we could use the crew weight to sort of get this hull out and get that hull flying, so that the helm can sort of try trapezing on their own with the tiller and the main sheet. But then we can also use that helm weight to sit for a little bit further in. So a little bit further in to get that crew sort of where Joseph is, and coming out in the front and coming around the side. You can get that hull up. You can just use the foot straps on the side there. Just put your feet against them, and you won't go anywhere when that hull starts to lift. It's nice and easy. Even the boom, because that's obviously there. You can just feet against that one if you need to. There's so, like, none of it's going to break. It's not going to go anywhere, but it's more comfortable. So try and experiment, but we're going to try and go out. I advocate this highly. I prefer going downwind. I quite like resting against that upwind dagger board, steering from here, sort of just steering from there, and I can see the set, I can see the main, I can see the jib, I can see what the kite's doing, I can see if there's pressure coming from behind me over my left shoulder, I can see if the apparent wind's coming and kicking in from that side, I can see the boats over there, I can see the boats out the back, boats out the front. The only bit I can't always see is the boat behind the spinnaker there, but if the crew is there, they can look round the outside edge of that kite, because that kite sheet should be tight enough in that the quill of the kite is sort of over this front beam here in this sort of area. So I highly advocate as a helm steering from this position, and you can play. You know, you've got the steerage. You can ease. You can bear away. You can luff up. You can find that pressure. Sheet in, sheet out. Control everything. You've also got access to the downhauls to depower.